Is Vince in again? The continuing. What are the cases? I obviously haven't been able to keep up with a lot of mundane shit, much less the technical thing. Vince's attorney was withholding the documents from the grand jury. They were investigating, but now the investigation has been dropped, but they were concealing something else, and there's an appeal, but a criminal case has been dropped. Brian, do we need to sit down with a stenographer and go over all this, or can you lead us through any of the high points?
I could do my best. A lot of this happened during this week where there was a lot of stuff happening, but I believe the first story I have here, this is from the AP. This was on February 10th. Vince McMahon's lawyer was wrong to withhold documents sought by grand jury. Court rules. A former lawyer for pro wrestling impresario Vince McMahon was wrong to withhold some documents from a federal grand jury as it investigated how the former WWE boss handled multi-million-dollar settlement agreements with 2 female employees who accused him of sexual abuse. A federal appeals court ruled Monday. So let's stop real quick right there. The big headline is an unnamed attorney for Vince McMahon, and obviously everyone's thinking of one person who announced his retirement suddenly, who was always Vince McMahon's main attorney.
Well, and this goes on. I'm right here with you on this article here, but the judges upheld another lower court ruling that this stuff wasn't protected by attorney-client privilege because of an exception for crime or fraud. And basically, they were trying to make Vince's paperwork look better, make the company's paperwork look better by certain things not being in it, which was alluded to on one of the last programs we did when we read Vince's message that got out, the voicemail to Janelle Grant about, they've got to be doing all these documents and I got to be clean or whatever, and we got to get this done super quick, baby. Apparently these were the pieces of paperwork, the documents that were being prepared that were prepared in a false manner. And the lawyer is not named in this story, and I'll tag you back in. I just want to make that point. The lawyer's not named in this story, but in the voicemail, Vince was saying, yeah, Jerry's got to write all this shit. God damn it. Oh, God.
And Jerry must have been scared. And Jerry must have been a little scared or really understood the severity of the situation, because Vince McMahon, remember what he said? I'm not saying he's turning on me, but his hands are tied. He has to he has to tell the truth is basically what he's saying.
And then, of course, Jerry McDevitt was what, 70 was. He's not dead. He's still around. But at that time, he was in his earlier mid-70s, and he announced his retirement because, he wanted to enjoy his life at that young, spry age. You think he bailed? He finally said, this motherfucker, I've been on this fucking horse for 40 years, but it's finally gonna fucking throw my ass.
Hey, listen to this. The appellate panel said that while McMahon's lawyer submitted many materials in response to the grand jury subpoena, they also submitted a log of 208 documents that were being withheld under assertions of attorney-client privilege. Though the identities of the parties were not disclosed in the appeals court opinion, a person familiar with the matter confirmed the unnamed, quote, former chief executive officer of a publicly traded company was McMahon. The person insisted on anonymity to discuss details that have not been made public. So again, it wasn't even something that was like Vince McMahon. People just figured it out because of what case it was. Again, we're going back to Jerry McDevitt. That's why people think it's Jerry McDevitt.
Well, the status of the grand jury investigation was not immediately clear. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan has declined to comment when asked about the investigation, which it has not publicly disclosed. Reps for McMahon have denied wrongdoing, no immediate comment. McMahon has previously suggested he was no longer under investigation. But the appeals court said in Monday's ruling that the case concerns proceedings currently before a grand jury. But at present, no indictments have been issued. Does anybody aspire to a fucking life where you can't even keep track of the federal and state investigations into you? What the fuck? He's 80 years old. If I make it to 80, you know where I'm going to be? Out in the backyard under the redbud tree. Sitting there enjoying the fucking birds.
See, but this is part of the story. So while they're saying it's an active thing before the grand jury, the next day, the New York Post, the headline, an exclusive by Ben Kochman, or maybe that's not his, Ben Coachman.
Ben Kochman?
Kochman. What? It's Kochman. Ben Kochman, I assume. Or he's the Cockman. I really don't know. But
he and Kramer could get together and be Assman and Cockman.
Feds drop criminal probe into whether WWE boss Vince McMahon covered up sexual misconduct allegations, his lawyer says. So again, the day after we hear this concerns something active, the next day his lawyer comes out and says, anything has been, did he say dismissed or just, they dropped? I guess dropped is not even dismissed, that they dropped it. So I don't know what.
Yeah, and here's the picture of Vince at the New York Stock Exchange looking like, Ernie Kovacs in a horror movie bit with this fucking hair in the face and the whole thing.
See, look at that picture. Look at like his skin color. I think he was sick there. It's not just the black hair dye against his skin. He's like pale, like it's not a healthy color there. But I don't know. Who knows?
And the drooping of the skin. But nevertheless. However, well, wait a minute. Hold on here now, because I'm reading down at the bottom here. Let's see if we can get to the bottom line, as Stone Cold might say. The lawyer, a former Manhattan federal prosecutor, stressed Tuesday that the prosecutors have ended the probe without asking the grand jury to bring an indictment against him. This is simply the result of an appeal of a procedural matter that was argued 5 months ago. We have been in consistent communication with the government since that time and understand with no ambiguity that the investigation has definitively concluded and will not result in charges. So that if you've got a lawyer that can spit out a sentence like that, you're as guilty as homemade sin.
And remember, it was in January when he settled with the SEC. So a month ago, he settled with the SEC. Now his lawyer's saying everything else has been dropped, that this is actually an old ruling, so that's why it says an active grand jury, that they're not active anymore.
Well, it seems like they weren't active enough at the beginning.
But you know what can't be dismissed is the Janelle Grant thing. Well, it can be, I guess, but it won't be by...
Well, it can't by this board of governance.
Yeah. Prosecutors aren't going to say, let's not go for this, because that's not what this is. This is a civil case, and that's not going away, at least not yet.
And apparently not as Vince, or so is Vince, or so not as Vince. Well, how would I say that if I spoke the English language, Brian? Apparently Vince isn't going away either.
See, don't you think if Vince makes this go away, whether it's a giant multi-million-dollar settlement or whatever it is, even though a lot of us think of him one way, and to the general public, they already thought wrestling was a low-down, dirty thing, and then they heard about Vince McMahon as a documentary on Netflix, Don't you think knowing him, he's going to want to do some kind of victory parade? I'm not saying it's going to be on WWE TV. I think in his dreams it would be. But I feel like we're going to see him get very public again, just to brag about winning, even if it's not a win. I think we're kind of on that road there right now.
I don't know. What kind of entertainment company is he putting together with his blooming friends?
Everyone who used to work at WWE, everyone who used to work for him at WWE that they let go of now works for him there. He went with The Undertaker. He didn't say, hey, let me go to the game with someone who's 5'10" or under that no one will notice. He went with the biggest guy he can get to go hang out with. He was looking for attention.
But it remains to be seen in what genre he's going to pursue. Because I think we've established he's smart enough to know he can't get wrestlers that can compete right now just legally, that are not contractually obligated. There's not enough anywhere in the fucking world. But what's he going to fucking try to do?
Is he going to do something with Shane?
Well, they're already going to ball games together. Maybe they'll start going to get ice cream on Sundays down at the DQ.